It's the end of the year, and almost all of the toys and figures and fun stuff of the year have officially been released. So I decided instead of my normal figure review, I'd sit down and make my very first top 10 list of all the Marvel Legends released in 2022. Now, I collect figures of all type, but out of all the figures I collect, Marvel Legends and WWE Elites make up the majority of my collection. I've been a fan of Marvel Legends ever since I was a kid, and I got the Toy Biz Young Avengers 5-pack, and while I didn't start collecting until late 2019, they've always held a special place in my heart. A few things to note before we get started. This list will mostly comprise of figures I've personally owned. After all, how else am I supposed to have an opinion on a figure if I don't own it? But there will be a few figures that I don't own that make an appearance on my list. And most importantly, this is my personal opinion. These are just the figures I've enjoyed the most, and I'm sure some of your favorites won't make the list. This year has been an odd one for Marvel Legends, and I'm very excited to break things down. Coming in hot, this is a figure I love very, very much, but I have one major issue with, and that figure is Ragnarok. Now, this is a figure I picked up before I made videos, but it was a figure I was very happy to have, and if you know me, you know I love a deal. So I picked this guy up for around 20 bucks, and it wasn't as bad for me as it could have been. And let me be clear, this figure is fantastic. It's got a wonderful sculpt, wonderful details, it's full of that 60s era charm, but the issue is, it's just a repaint of the 80th anniversary Thor. Now, it does come with some different heads, different boots. Some of the details are a little bit different, and it makes it its own figure. And it comes with that awesome Mjolnir hammer effect that looks like it's swinging around. But if you already own the 80th anniversary figure, you already own this figure, essentially. And for the release price, 3 or 4 extra accessories is a bit much, but like I said, I got it for 20 bucks, so it isn't that bad for me. So I'm happy to put it in my number 10 spot. Number 9 is a figure that I thought would be harder to find, but for me at least, it was one of the easiest to snag, and that's the Groot from Thor Love and Thunder. Jane actually ended up being the one I couldn't find in stores, and now my Korg just stands slightly ajar, missing one leg. But this Groot is much better in person than I thought it would be. I knew it looked good. Like, you can tell it has a nice head sculpt, and there are some cute little details, but I was worried he wouldn't articulate well, and he actually turned out to be one of the best in the line. I've been able to get him into some very cool poses, and with all the cool little accessories he's got, I've just had a lot of fun with him, so he goes in my number 9 spot. I think it's fair to give my 8th spot to another figure that I got for very, very cheap, and that's the very cool Defender Strange. Now, when I first saw this figure, I was incredibly excited. I didn't buy it right away, but just seeing this figure made me think how cool this guy would be in a movie, and of course, having seen the movie, we know he didn't really play that big of a role. But I don't believe that takes away too much from the figure itself because it's really a fantastic figure. This is probably the most unique Doctor Strange figure we've gotten since his first Marvel Legend, and despite the fact it doesn't really resemble Defender Strange from the comics, I still think it looks great with a lot of amazing details. And of course, it comes with that amazing portal accessory, which now we've seen reused for the X-Men Villains 5-pack because it wouldn't be Marvel Legends without a little bit of reuse. So, Defender Strange goes in my number 8. For my first figure I don't personally own, I have to give it to another Strange we got this year that's a little more classic. I'm talking about the classic looking Doctor Strange. Apparently, I have an affinity for the more retro style figures because I have a lot of them, and despite not being alive when the comics came out, I just think they translate to the figure form really, really well. Now, like I said, I don't have this one yet. Hopefully I find them soon, but based on what I've seen, this figure just looks amazing. You get 3 head sculpts, which all look great, some fantastic accessories, and an incredible looking body sculpt. I love the blue, almost tunic looking shirt with the huge cape on the back and the very cool magic hands. In an attempt to keep some of the figures I don't own from going too much further into the list, I'll go ahead and add Retro Rhino to number 6. Spider-Man is my favorite superhero of all time, and I've built myself a pretty stellar collection of his villains, and Rhino has always been one of my favorites ever since me and my cousin pulled an all-nighter to beat him in Spider-Man 2. Now, this is a figure I should have had by now, but GameStop canceled my order. Regardless, this figure looks amazing to me, and I love the head sculpt. This looks like it was ripped right out of the cartoon. I can tell it doesn't have the best articulation, but I can look past that when it has such an amazing body. I can't wait to have this figure. We are entering the top 5 of my favorite Marvel Legends list, and before I go too much further, I have to ask you guys to leave a like and subscribe and let me know what you guys think of the video so far. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Let me know. And for my number 5, I have Mr. Sinister. If you saw one of my previous videos, you saw Hasbro sent me this and a morph as a replacement for another broken figure, and I fell in love with it instantly. Before I had this figure, I had no desire for the VHS collection, and I didn't like the cell shading, and I never watched the X-Men show, so I simply wasn't interested in it very much, but after receiving this figure, I have completely changed my mind, and now I think I need to get more. I wasn't expecting to like this figure, but it's quickly become one of my favorite on the shelf, and that is the classic Black Panther. I never had much of an attachment to Black Panther. Growing up, the only thing I knew from him was the Ultimate Avengers 2 movie, and I thought he was a cool enough character, but honestly, he never showed up much in the comics and movies I read, all the way up until the release of Civil War and Black Panther. So when I saw this figure get announced, I simply shrugged my shoulders and said, well, it looks cool, I guess. Then I reviewed it for the channel, which will hopefully be up soon, and I loved the figure. It's a little dull in detail, but it's supposed to be. It's a classic figure. Details are scarce on these guys, but it takes what it was given and absolutely runs with it. An amazing figure, incredible. Okay, now it's time for my top 3, and for the final figure I don't own, I think I have to give it to the 20th anniversary Incredible Hulk. Now, I can only go based off of looks, but this looks really fucking cool. I love the dark, almost swamp-like green of the Hulk and this beautiful head sculpt. It also comes with a fantastic accessory with the cool concrete stomp thingy. This might not be the best Hulk for collectors who have been collecting for a long time, but considering I only have one Hulk figure, and that Hulk figure is the Compound Hulk, this is the Hulk for me. Alright, are you excited to see what my number 1 is? Well, get ready for my number 2, which is Retro Lizard. I don't have much of a defense for this one, to be honest. I know it's not the second best Marvel Legend that was released this year, but for me, I love it. I love it so much. For some reason, the Spider-Man Retro series has gotten a lot of hate, at least the second series. I'm not entirely sure why, but I have loved every one that I've managed to pick up, which has been incredibly and annoyingly difficult. I love the science lab accessories, I love the goofy little tail, I love the dumb little head sculpt, I love everything about this figure. Time for some honorable mentions. This seems a little unnecessary considering how long this video is, but there were so many figures I loved this year I simply couldn't manage to fit it in a top 10 list, so I'll toss them in here. Now, I go quick. First is this Wolverine. Fantastic figure, but there's no accessories and that kind of blows. Retro Armor Mark 1 Spider-Man. This figure almost made my top 10, but the lack of accessories kind of sucks, and there's not even wall climbing hands on a Spider-Man figure. Come on. Retro Beast. Honestly, this probably would have been my second, but I'm not even sure this released this year since every website says it releases in 2023, but I could have swore it came out this year, and GameStop won't deliver my shipment because GameStop sucks. Never shop there. The Venom and Noel 2-pack is the same situation as Beast. Bombastic Bagman, it looks incredible, but that's a really old body mold, and I ain't about that. The Marvel Legends Venom 3-pack, I only want the Venom, and finally is this Thor, which has been sitting on my desk waiting to be opened on the channel in a review later down the line. And it's time for my number 1. I've already stated that Spider-Man is my favorite superhero. He's been a part of my life since I was 4 years old when the first live-action Spider-Man released. Every time I went to my cousin's house, the only thing on TV was SpongeBob and reruns of Spider-Man. One of my first action figures was the Spectacular Spider-Man. Hell, this is a picture of me as a child. This year has been the 60th anniversary for Spider-Man, and we've seen everything from Japanese Spider-Man, 90s animated Spider-Man, Iron Spider, Amazing Fantasy Spider-Man, Ben Reilly, Black Suit Spider-Verse. But the one Spider-Man that I loved above all others was the Renew Your Vows Spider-Man. This Spider-Man does everything I've been wanting out of a Spider-Man figure since I started collecting, and it can only go up from here. So, that's it. That's my list. Did you agree? I know some people already disagree with my number 1 based on other videos I've seen, but I don't really care. This is my list. And you know what? For being my first ever list, I'm proud of what I've done. So, I guess that's it. I can move on to the next thing. I guess all that's left to say is thank you for watching and bye.